So you're going to have 1.6 million little bundles. Sometimes you put them into bundles of 10. So you need 160,000 bundles this thick. Okay. Obviously, you need to put that somewhere, right? When I put that much cash, it's probably you're gonna need at least 5 or 6 semi trucks filled with that. What are my risks when I put that money in there? What could happen to cash? Now we're thinking about physical risks. You know, there could be a fire, it could be stolen. And if you want to protect yourself against these, you're gonna have to buy insurance. That insurance costs money. I'm not even talking about the actual cost of doing all of that. You have to pay people to do all of that. Cost of storage. So instead of doing that, they tell the German government, okay, just keep our money, we'll gladly pay you in lieu of insurance and storage. This kind of stuff happens when the demand for money is low. Normally it would have been zero, but you can actually go negative in nominal terms. It was the Japanese that started this first back in 90s. The 90s is known as the lost decade in Japan. Let me show you how lost that decade was. We're going to look at the graph of Nikkei 225, which is essentially the S&P 500 of Japan, but they have 225 companies instead of 500. And let's look at all time. And remember, this is in yen terms, okay? This is October 1989. This index has seen as high as 38,957. Remember, those days, $1 brought you only 80 yen. Now it's about 150. And only recently, let's look at the all month, we actually got above that, okay? It took Japan in yen terms, not even dollar terms, 89 to now is what, 35 years? Yeah, to catch up to that. That's why 90s are called the lost decade. That means people had a lot of money, but they had nowhere to invest it. And if you look at the Japanese rates, yeah. Even now, it's pretty low. For every one 10,000 yen you lend them, which is about $70 these days. Every year they're gonna pay you only 69 yen, and you can't even buy a gum with 69 yen. I think the smallest coin they have is 50 yen. I think. I'm not sure. I was there in 2006, so I don't know what happened after that. Oh no, they had a 5 yen coin. The 5 yen coin had actually a little hole in the middle. I still have it somewhere at home. The biggest coin was 500 yen. It was about yay big. We need a $2 coin, at least, if not $5 coin. But and by 2016, the nominal rates were negative, and they remain negative quite a bit. They kind of became positive relatively recently, right after COVID times. So Japanese were at negative rates even before COVID. The Europeans have done so after that. Swiss are actually the worst in that. Come on, where's the chart? Oh, there it is. Uh, if you looked at this 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, around the end of 2021, even the 50 years response had negative yields. That was Switzerland protecting themselves. In fact, the short-term 1 year rates were about negative 1%, because a lot of people brought their money into Switzerland as a safe haven, and they didn't want that kind of money. So they said, if you're going to bring your money, you're gonna have to pay us. But that is possible. You can have negative yields. Okay, how am I doing in time? All right. Now, these these are bonds that are classified against fixed versus floating. You can also have bonds that are backed by an asset, or sometimes these are collateralized bonds. Collateralized. The most famous of them are the mortgage-backed bonds. The bonds that we're talking about until now are unsecured bonds. Okay, sometimes they're also known as a debenture. And please read the chapter and get those definitions. Mortgage-backed bonds are backed by the cash flow from a pool of mortgages. For example, Freddie Mac and Ginnie Mae. These are government-sponsored entities that actually issue these kinds of bonds. Private entities also do it, but they tend to do it with subprime kind of stuff. They actually guarantee that there won't be any default on these. It's actually a rather simple structure. Let's say I'm a bank and I have $100,000 mortgages I have originated. So that's $100 million in my books. And I don't want to carry that in my books. It's a risk because I have to fund that. And if people default, you know, I still have to keep funding that. Instead of that, I'm going to go to Cayman Islands or Bermuda, depending upon what sort of amenities you have. Establish a little company. You pay $100 a year for something like that just to keep a name on a wall. But this company has nothing right now. So I'm going to sell all of these mortgages to that company. That company has a special name. In fact, it is called a special purpose vehicle. Or SPV. The trouble is this company has no money. In order to buy those bonds, it's going to issue a bond. SPV issues a bond and promises the bondholders prorated, of course, cash flow from the pool of mortgages. The bank still keeps the rights to service the loans because they actually charge you something to service those loans. And more than likely, they're going to make a little spread in the deal as well. But this will completely take these mortgages off the balance sheet of the bank. Funding that is no longer their problem, and it's no longer their asset either. We said 100 million, right? If the denominations are typically 1,000 in bonds, so there's going to be $100,000 face value bonds. Normally, you can't make a mortgage investment with $1,000, right? But if you buy a mortgage-backed security, you can. All you have to do is pay $1,000. They will give you one bond, and you will get exactly 1/100,000th of the cash flow that comes from this pool. If that month this pool gets $20 million, you're gonna get 1/100,000th of that, which is $200,000, right? If pool gets $1 million, you're gonna get $10, your share. If somebody defaults and you don't get the money, you don't get the money. In many cases, in mortgage-backed securities, defaults are not that much of an issue. The problem is they owe you 100,000, you foreclose on the property, you can only sell it for 80, okay? Then you're gonna take a haircut on the deal. But given that a lot of these loans, especially if you're buying it from Freddie Mac or Ginnie Mae, they have 80% loan to value. So property value should go down really hard for you to lose some money. That kind of stuff happens. In 2008, it did. Normally, I